In a world often driven by self-interest and external validation, the Stoic principle of focusing on what we can offer rather than what we can take stands as a powerful antidote to manipulation and dissatisfaction. Stoicism teaches us that true fulfillment and resilience come not from the pursuit of external rewards, but from living according to virtues such as wisdom, integrity, and service. Cunning individuals often exploit our desires for recognition, approval, and material gain, offering promises that appeal to our ego and attachment to outcomes. By shifting our focus to what we can give, our time, efforts, and virtues, we reduce our vulnerability to manipulation and align ourselves with a life of purpose. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most prominent Stoic philosophers, emphasized, "What can hurt you if you are at peace with yourself?" When we prioritize self-interest, we become susceptible to external forces that seek to control or influence us. Cunning people often manipulate these desires, exploiting our need for approval, status, or material possessions. They may offer rewards that appear attractive, but ultimately leave us unfulfilled and disconnected from our true values. Stoicism, on the other hand, teaches that living in accordance with our virtues, contributing to others, acting with integrity, and seeking what is good, brings lasting peace and purpose. Epictetus, another key Stoic figure, advised, "What is good for you is not necessarily good for others." This reinforces the idea that true prosperity comes from focusing on what we can offer to others rather than what we can take. When we shift our attention from external gains to the development of our virtues and character, we cultivate resilience, authenticity, and inner peace. Cunning tactics often thrive on our fear of rejection or our desire for immediate rewards, leading us to prioritize self-serving goals. However, Stoicism urges us to focus on serving others, contributing to the greater good, and living a life of virtue. By embracing the Stoic principle of focusing on what we can offer, we free ourselves from the manipulation of external influences and strive toward a life of purpose and integrity. This mindset empowers us to act with wisdom, self-discipline, and courage, ultimately guarding against the tactics of those who seek to exploit our desires. Number 1. Control your emotions. Control your life. The ability to control one's emotions is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, offering profound guidance on how to live a life of integrity, resilience, and peace. Stoicism teaches that emotions often arise from our judgments about events, not from the events themselves. By understanding this, we can take control of our reactions and lead a life free from the disturbances that external circumstances may present. The Stoics believed that mastering our emotions is essential to achieving virtue and living a life aligned with reason. Marcus Aurelius, a prominent Stoic philosopher, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This simple yet powerful statement underscores the Stoic belief that our internal peace is not dependent on external circumstances, but rather on our responses to those circumstances. Emotional reactions, whether fear, anger, or desire, are often impulsive and can lead us astray, making us vulnerable to manipulation. Cunning individuals often exploit our emotional states to sway our decisions, convincing us to act irrationally or impulsively in pursuit of fleeting pleasures or security. Stoicism teaches us to view external events as neither inherently good nor bad, but as indifferent to our inner state. It is our judgments about those events that cause emotional disturbances. By acknowledging this, we can strive to maintain rationality and control our emotional responses. For example, when faced with a setback or criticism, a Stoic would reflect on the situation objectively, understanding that their well-being depends not on external approval, but on their own response. Epictetus, another key Stoic philosopher, advised, "It is not events that disturb people, but their judgments about them." By controlling our judgments and focusing on what is within our control, our thoughts and actions, we can reduce emotional turmoil and increase our resilience. Cunning individuals often prey on our emotions, using flattery or fear to manipulate us. However, Stoicism encourages us to distance ourselves from these emotional triggers, choosing instead to act with reason and self-discipline. The Stoic path to emotional control involves practices such as reflection, acceptance, and focusing on what is within our power. By observing our emotions without attachment, we can choose how to respond rather than being driven by instinct or external pressures. The Stoic practice of negative visualization, mentally preparing for adversity, helps strengthen our resolve and emotional resilience, reminding us that difficult situations are often opportunities for growth. Ultimately, by cultivating emotional control, we empower ourselves to live with greater clarity, avoiding manipulation and distraction. Control over our emotions is a key element in living a virtuous life, free from the influence of those who seek to exploit our vulnerabilities. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Number 2, practice self-restraint and detachment. Self-restraint and detachment are fundamental principles of Stoic philosophy, guiding individuals to live with wisdom, tranquility, and independence. The Stoics believed that attachment to desires, pleasures, and external outcomes leads to vulnerability and suffering. By practicing self-restraint and detachment, we free ourselves from the control of desires and reduce our susceptibility to manipulation by external forces. Epictetus, a key Stoic figure, emphasized the importance of self-restraint, saying, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." This reflects the Stoic understanding that detachment from external judgments and desires is essential for living a life of virtue. Cunning individuals often exploit our attachments to pleasures, status, and material wealth, offering rewards that appeal to our ego or desires. However, Stoicism teaches that true freedom comes from letting go of these attachments and focusing on what is within our control, our character, values, and actions. Self-restraint involves the ability to recognize and control our desires, rather than allowing them to dictate our choices. When we are controlled by our desires for approval, material gain, or immediate gratification, we become vulnerable to manipulation. Cunning individuals use these desires to sway our decisions, promising short-term pleasure or success, while leading us away from our virtues and long-term well-being. The Stoic response is to develop self-discipline and cultivate inner peace, focusing on what truly matters, the development of our character and the pursuit of virtue. Marcus Aurelius, another prominent Stoic philosopher, wrote, "Do not let your thoughts wander too much, for that is the root of trouble." This highlights the importance of self-restraint in maintaining clarity and composure. By detaching from unnecessary distractions and desires, we can remain focused on what is essential, our values, purpose, and virtues. Cunning people often create distractions and temptations, exploiting our attachment to desires to manipulate our attention and actions. Detachment does not mean becoming indifferent to life or emotions, but rather cultivating a balanced relationship with external circumstances. It involves accepting what is beyond our control and focusing on our responses to those circumstances. By practicing detachment, we become less susceptible to external influences and more aligned with our Stoic values of wisdom, courage, and self-control. The Stoic practice of examining our attachments through the lens of reason helps us develop the strength to let go of what is fleeting and pursue what is truly valuable. By cultivating self-restraint, we gain the clarity and resilience needed to navigate life's challenges without being controlled by external forces. As Epictetus advised, it is not events that disturb people, but their judgments about them. Detachment allows us to observe these judgments without being consumed by them. Ultimately, practicing self-restraint and detachment empowers us to live a life of virtue, free from manipulation and distraction. By focusing on what is within our control and letting go of desires that bring temporary satisfaction, we cultivate inner peace, clarity, and the strength to act in accordance with Stoic principles. Number 3. Understand what is under your control. One of the fundamental tenets of Stoicism is the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. The Stoics, particularly Epictetus, taught that true wisdom lies in understanding and accepting this distinction. Our lives are often disrupted by the attempt to control things that are outside our power, events, other people's actions, or outcomes. By focusing on what we can control, our thoughts, actions, and responses, we free ourselves from unnecessary anxiety and vulnerability to manipulation by external forces. Epictetus famously said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us." This simple yet profound statement captures the essence of Stoic philosophy. We often suffer because we expend our energy trying to control what is beyond our power, things like other people's opinions, external circumstances, or uncontrollable events. When we fail to accept what we cannot control, we become anxious, frustrated, and easily influenced by external distractions. Cunning individuals often exploit our focus on things beyond our control, offering solutions, promises, or distractions that play on our desire for control and certainty. They use our anxieties about outcomes to manipulate our behavior, convincing us to act irrationally or impulsively in an attempt to alter circumstances we cannot influence. The Stoic response to this is to focus solely on what is within our power, our thoughts, choices, and actions, and let go of attempts to control external outcomes. Marcus Aurelius, another Stoic philosopher, emphasized, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." By accepting what is beyond our control and focusing on what we can influence, our attitudes, choices, and reactions, we cultivate resilience and peace. Manipulative individuals often prey on our desire to control others, external circumstances, or the future. However, Stoicism teaches that real control comes from mastering ourselves, not attempting to control external factors. Understanding what is under our control allows us to act with intention and clarity. We cannot control the actions of others, nor can we control events that occur beyond our reach. However, we can control our thoughts, judgments, and responses to those external circumstances. When we shift our focus to what we can control, we reduce the emotional turbulence caused by trying to manipulate outcomes that are beyond our influence. Epictetus also advised, "Do not seek to have events happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do happen, and you will go on well." This principle encourages us to accept reality as it is and take responsibility for our responses, rather than futilely attempting to alter what is beyond our control. Cunning people exploit our desire for certainty and control, promising quick solutions or shortcuts. However, Stoicism teaches that true peace comes from understanding our limits and living in harmony with what we can influence. Ultimately, understanding what is under our control helps us act with clarity, wisdom, and resilience. By focusing on our thoughts, choices, and actions, we cultivate the inner strength to face life's challenges without being swayed by external forces. This understanding guards us against manipulation and leads us toward a life of virtue and peace. Number 4. Guard against procrastination and impulses. Procrastination and impulsive behavior are major obstacles to living a Stoic life of clarity and purpose. The Stoics believed that our rational mind is often overrun by emotional responses and short-term desires, which can lead to distractions, procrastination, and impulsive decisions. Marcus Aurelius, a key Stoic philosopher, warned against these tendencies, emphasizing the importance of self-discipline, careful reflection, and control over our impulses. Procrastination, according to Stoic philosophy, arises when we allow distractions, fear, or the desire for comfort to take precedence over our long-term goals. The Stoic approach to overcoming procrastination involves recognizing that our actions are under our control and that the path to virtue and self-improvement requires disciplined effort. Cunning individuals often exploit our procrastination by offering instant gratification, promising quick results or pleasures that seem appealing but ultimately lead to distractions and a lack of progress. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." This reminds us that procrastination is often driven by the fear of discomfort, uncertainty, or the expectation of perfection. Cunning tactics often rely on these fears, leading us to delay tasks that are essential for our growth. Stoicism teaches us to act with purpose and to resist the temptation of seeking immediate comfort over long-term results. Impulsivity is another major concern for the Stoics. Acting on impulse driven by desire or fear often leads to irrational decisions that we later regret. The Stoics understood that our rational mind is often clouded by emotions, and it is through self-discipline and control that we can overcome this. Cunning individuals exploit our impulsive tendencies by encouraging us to act without thinking, offering quick fixes or immediate rewards that lead us further from our long-term goals. Epictetus advised, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." This reflects the Stoic belief that self-control and patience are essential for true progress. By guarding against procrastination and impulsivity, we create the space needed for reflection and disciplined action. Stoicism teaches that by focusing on what is under our control, the effort, decisions, and actions we take, we can avoid the distractions of procrastination and the pitfalls of impulsivity. The Stoic practice of memento mori, meditating on the inevitability of death, also helps us overcome procrastination. Recognizing that time is limited reminds us of the urgency to act and prioritize what is truly important. By contemplating the fleeting nature of life, we reduce our tendency to procrastinate and instead focus on taking deliberate steps toward our goals. Ultimately, guarding against procrastination and impulses empowers us to live a life of virtue and purpose. By cultivating self-discipline, reflection, and rational decision-making, we reduce our vulnerability to manipulation and distractions. The Stoic principle of acting with reason and self-control provides the foundation for living a life of integrity and fulfillment. Number 5. Seek virtue, not favor or approval. The Stoic pursuit of virtue is a cornerstone of their philosophy, advocating that the true path to a fulfilled life is not through the pursuit of external approval or favor, but through the cultivation of moral character and integrity. Stoicism teaches that our focus should be on what is within our control, our actions, decisions, and values, rather than seeking the approval or validation of others. Cunning individuals often exploit our desire for approval, promising recognition, status, or rewards in exchange for our compliance. However, by seeking virtue over favor, we guard against such manipulation and align ourselves with a life of authenticity and purpose. Marcus Aurelius, a key Stoic figure, wrote, What can hurt you if you are at peace with yourself? This statement highlights the Stoic belief that our peace and contentment should not depend on external validation, but on our own virtue and character. When we seek approval or favor from others, we become susceptible to manipulation and the whims of external forces. Cunning individuals exploit this desire, offering hollow rewards that ultimately leave us unfulfilled and dependent on others' opinions. Epictetus, another Stoic philosopher, advised, "What is good for you is not necessarily good for others." This reminds us that our pursuit of virtue often requires standing firm in the face of external pressures and remaining committed to what is right, regardless of approval or recognition from others. Seeking favor, on the other hand, leads us away from our true values and into a life of superficiality and dependency. Stoicism encourages us to focus on the development of virtues such as wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. By prioritizing these virtues, we cultivate an inner strength that is impervious to the whims of external approval. The Stoic practice of memento mori, reflecting on mortality, also reinforces this principle, reminding us that the pursuit of external validation is fleeting and ultimately meaningless in the face of death. Cunning individuals often prey on our fear of rejection or the desire for social validation. They promise external rewards, such as status, admiration, or material possessions, in exchange for our compliance. However, Stoicism teaches us to recognize that these rewards are fleeting and that true fulfillment comes from acting in accordance with our virtues. The Stoic goal is to live a life of authenticity, aligning our actions with our values and accepting that external recognition is beyond our control. By focusing on what is within our power, our choices and character, we reduce our susceptibility to manipulation and distractions. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than his ambitions." Ultimately, by seeking virtue over favor, we empower ourselves to live with integrity, strength, and peace. We become less vulnerable to the manipulation of others and more attuned to what truly matters, our character and the pursuit of excellence in living according to Stoic principles. Number 6. Live according to nature and values. Living according to nature and values is a fundamental principle of Stoicism that emphasizes the importance of aligning our lives with the natural order of the world and our personal values. Stoics believed that humans are part of a greater natural order, and to live in harmony with this order is to live a life of virtue and purpose. Cunning individuals often manipulate us by enticing us with false promises, encouraging us to deviate from our true nature and values in pursuit of superficial goals. However, by adhering to Stoic principles and living according to nature and our values, we can resist these manipulations and lead more authentic and fulfilling lives. The Stoics, particularly Epictetus, emphasized the idea that we should strive to live in accordance with nature. Epictetus said, "If you wish to be rich, do not add to your money, but subtract from your desire." This statement reflects the Stoic belief that we should align our desires and actions with nature, rather than seeking wealth, power, or recognition for their own sake. When we live in accordance with our true nature and values, we reduce our susceptibility to external manipulation, which often exploits our desires for things that are not inherently beneficial. Cunning individuals often prey on our desires for material success, status, or instant gratification. They promise quick rewards, appealing to our ego or our need for control, but these goals are often at odds with our natural disposition and deeper values. Stoicism teaches us that our true nature involves the pursuit of virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, not transient external gains. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Reject your sense of injury and the injury itself disappears. This highlights the Stoic understanding that our attachments to external outcomes often lead to suffering. Living according to our values helps us avoid the traps laid by cunning individuals who exploit these attachments to manipulate us. Stoicism also teaches us that we are part of a larger order governed by nature, and our goal is to act in harmony with it. By understanding our role within the natural world, we can focus on what is within our control, our character, choices, and responses. The Stoic practice of memento mori, reflecting on mortality, reinforces the idea that we should not cling to what is fleeting and external, but rather embrace our role within the natural order. When we live in accordance with our values, rather than chasing after external validation or superficial success, we cultivate inner peace and clarity. By focusing on virtues like courage and self-discipline, we build resilience against manipulation. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we are going to live for 1,000 years, but let us live as if we are going to die tomorrow." This balance between long-term goals and the reality of our mortality encourages us to live according to our values, rather than being driven by transient desires. Ultimately, living according to nature and our values allows us to act with integrity and authenticity. We become less vulnerable to external pressures and manipulations as we are aligned with what truly matters. By focusing on what is within our control, the cultivation of virtue and the pursuit of our values, we lead lives of greater purpose and peace, free from the distractions and false promises of those who seek to manipulate us. Number 7. Focus on what you can offer, not what you can take. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is the emphasis on contributing to the well-being of others and living a life centered on virtue, rather than seeking personal gain or external rewards. The Stoics believed that living with an attitude of service and offering value to others leads to a life of integrity, purpose, and authenticity. In contrast, those who focus on what they can take often fall prey to manipulation and the pursuit of shallow, fleeting desires. By shifting our attention to what we can give rather than what we can receive, we reduce our vulnerability to cunning influences and cultivate a life of meaning and fulfillment. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus advised, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This reflects the Stoic belief that true contentment comes from focusing on what we can give and contribute to the world, rather than fixating on what we can take or acquire. Cunning individuals often exploit our desires for wealth, status, and admiration, encouraging us to pursue these external goals, which ultimately lead to emptiness and dissatisfaction. By contrast, focusing on what we can offer shifts our mindset from selfishness to service. The Stoics believed that by living in accordance with virtue, such as wisdom, justice, and courage, we naturally contribute to the well-being of others. When we give value, we align ourselves with what is under our control, our character, choices, and actions. This shift reduces the control that external factors have over us, as we cease to be driven by the desire for approval or material gain. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." This reminds us that our greatest opportunities often arise from adversity, and by focusing on what we can give, we strengthen our character and foster resilience. Manipulative individuals often prey on our desires for material wealth and recognition, promising easy gains or shortcuts. However, Stoicism teaches that these pursuits are fleeting and ultimately unfulfilling. When we focus on offering value, we develop a deeper sense of purpose and authenticity. The Stoics viewed service to others as a means of living a life of virtue, contributing to the greater good rather than being consumed by self-interest. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, wrote, It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. This illustrates the Stoic belief that true wealth lies not in material possessions, but in the contributions we make to others. Focusing on what we can offer also helps us avoid the manipulations of those who seek to exploit our desires for personal gain. By shifting our attention outward, we cultivate a sense of generosity, humility, and self-awareness. These virtues protect us from falling into the trap of self-centered pursuits and instead help us build meaningful connections with others. Ultimately, the Stoic principle of focusing on what we can offer rather than what we can take allows us to live a life of greater purpose, integrity, and peace. By prioritizing virtue and service, we reduce our vulnerability to manipulation and external distractions, fostering a sense of fulfillment that comes from contributing to the well-being of others. Number 8. Beware of false pleasantries and flattery. In Stoicism, one of the key principles is the importance of guarding ourselves against false pleasantries and flattery. The Stoics believed that genuine wisdom lies not in seeking the approval or admiration of others, but in recognizing the difference between authentic feedback and empty praise. Cunning individuals often exploit our desires for admiration, offering flattering words and false pleasantries designed to manipulate our emotions and influence our decisions. By being aware of these deceptive tactics, we can remain grounded in our values and avoid falling prey to the distractions of flattery. Marcus Aurelius, a prominent Stoic philosopher, wrote, "It is not what others do or say that should worry us, but what we ourselves do or say." This statement highlights the Stoic focus on internal control rather than external validation. Cunning individuals use flattery to inflate our ego, offering false praise to gain influence over us. The Stoics understood that seeking approval or admiration from others often leads to distraction and deviation from our true purpose. Flattery, by nature, is intended to appeal to our vanity and desires for validation. It often conceals ulterior motives, as those who offer empty praise may have selfish intentions. The Stoics advise us to be vigilant and discerning when faced with such attention. Epictetus warned, "Pay no attention to the impression that flattery makes on you." This reminds us to remain skeptical of praise that is not based on true virtue or genuine character. Cunning individuals often exploit our desire for social acceptance and admiration by offering superficial compliments that appeal to our ego. They promise benefits, status, or approval in exchange for compliance. However, Stoicism teaches that such external validations are ultimately unreliable and unimportant. Rather than focusing on the approval of others, we should cultivate self-awareness and prioritize our own character and values. The Stoics valued honesty and virtue over approval or admiration. By recognizing the difference between genuine praise and flattery, we safeguard ourselves from manipulation. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This reflects the Stoic belief that much of our emotional turmoil stems from our attachment to the opinions of others, particularly when those opinions are founded on flattery rather than truth. When we become susceptible to flattery, we are more likely to make decisions driven by the desire for approval rather than reason. By remaining vigilant and committed to our values, we can avoid falling into this trap. The Stoic practice of memento mori, meditating on our mortality, reminds us to focus on what truly matters, reducing the importance we place on external validation. Ultimately, Stoicism teaches us to beware of false pleasantries and flattery, emphasizing the importance of self-control, integrity, and alignment with virtue. By maintaining a clear sense of purpose and focusing on what is within our control, our character and values, we can avoid the distractions of flattery and stay grounded in our pursuit of authenticity and truth. Number 9. Let actions speak louder than words. One of the fundamental teachings of Stoicism is the belief that our actions are the true reflection of our character, not the words we utter. The Stoics emphasize the importance of living in accordance with virtue and letting our actions demonstrate our values, rather than relying on empty promises or empty words. Cunning individuals often use persuasive language to manipulate others, promising results or showcasing false intentions, while their actions reveal a different reality. By focusing on actions over words, we can avoid falling into these deceptive traps and lead lives of authenticity and integrity. Marcus Aurelius, a key Stoic philosopher, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This reinforces the Stoic belief that what truly matters is not what others say, but how they behave. Words can be easily manipulated, but actions are harder to fake. Cunning individuals often use charming language to win our trust, promising success, loyalty, or validation, but their actions may not align with their words. Epictetus emphasized, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Here, Epictetus reminds us that true virtue is demonstrated through action, not verbal expression. A person's words may sound persuasive or convincing, but their actions reveal their true intentions. By focusing on actions rather than relying on words, we reduce our susceptibility to manipulation and false promises. Flattery, empty compliments, and persuasive rhetoric are often used by cunning individuals to influence others. They may speak of loyalty, commitment, or values, but their actions may betray those words. Stoicism encourages us to be discerning, recognizing that someone's character is best judged by their actions. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." This reminds us that true courage and virtue are not demonstrated through words, but through the consistent actions we take. In practice, this means we should evaluate others based on their deeds, not just their promises. A person may say all the right things, but if their actions don't support their words, they are likely not trustworthy. The Stoic focus on memento mori, meditation on mortality, reinforces this idea, reminding us that time is limited and we should not be deceived by empty words that ultimately have no lasting impact. By prioritizing actions over words, we cultivate self-awareness and integrity. We recognize that the true test of character is what someone does when no one is watching. A person's words may sway us temporarily, but their actions reveal their true values and intentions. The Stoic practice of focusing on what is within our control, our character, choices, and responses, ensures that we don't become dependent on the empty promises of others. Ultimately, Stoicism teaches us to let actions speak louder than words. By focusing on the behavior and actions of others, rather than their rhetoric, we can avoid manipulation, foster trust, and remain aligned with our values. In doing so, we lead lives of greater authenticity, grounded in the integrity of our actions. Number 10. Embrace discipline and hard choices. Discipline and the willingness to make hard choices are central principles in Stoicism. The Stoics believed that a life devoid of discipline and the courage to face difficult decisions often leads to vulnerability, instability, and susceptibility to manipulation. Cunning individuals frequently exploit our avoidance of hard choices and our desire for comfort, offering quick, easy solutions that may initially seem appealing, but ultimately lead to dissatisfaction. By embracing discipline and facing difficult decisions head-on, we strengthen our character, reduce our susceptibility to manipulation, and build resilience against the false promises of those who seek to control us. Marcus Aurelius emphasized, The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This highlights the Stoic belief that challenges and difficulties are not to be avoided, but embraced as opportunities for growth and self-mastery. Discipline is not about denying ourselves what we want, but rather about taking control of our desires and actions to align with our values. Cunning individuals often prey on our fear of discomfort and uncertainty. They present us with shortcuts, instant gratification, and easy solutions that appeal to our desire for comfort and immediate results. However, Stoicism teaches us that these easy paths lead to fleeting satisfaction and deeper dissatisfaction in the long run. Epictetus wrote, "You are a slave to what you fear," emphasizing that avoiding hard choices ultimately leads to loss of freedom and control. Discipline, according to the Stoics, involves the ability to endure discomfort, face adversity, and make decisions based on reason and virtue rather than immediate gratification. Seneca advised, "Without discipline, there's no life at all." This reminds us that discipline is not an external imposition, but an internal commitment to act in accordance with our values, even when it's difficult. By embracing hard choices, we cultivate virtues like courage, resilience, and self-control. These virtues protect us from manipulation, as they ensure we are not swayed by external pressures or momentary desires. The Stoic practice of memento mori, reflecting on our mortality, helps us recognize that life is short and requires us to make choices that align with our higher purpose, rather than succumbing to the distractions of comfort or ease. In contrast, those who avoid hard choices often become vulnerable to external manipulation. Cunning individuals exploit our tendency to seek comfort and the desire to avoid discomfort. They promise instant gratification or solutions that appear to be easier, but these often come with hidden costs that are revealed only after we've compromised our integrity and virtue. Seneca warned, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This suggests that our fear of discomfort often leads to more suffering than the discomfort itself. When we embrace hard choices, we build mental resilience and inner strength, allowing us to navigate life with greater clarity and purpose. Ultimately, Stoicism teaches that embracing discipline and hard choices leads to a life of authenticity, integrity, and freedom. By making the difficult decisions necessary for our growth, we reduce our vulnerability to manipulation and become better equipped to live in accordance with virtue and reason.